Alright, so I thought I'd make a real quick video about what kind of paint that you should use on your house, and what kind of paint on your eaves and stuff like that. A lot of people, and your doors and stuff like that, and what the differences in paints are for houses. Because I go to the paints, like to the Home Depot or something like that, and I've gotten so many different, I've been listening to the guys explaining to people so many different things that, they think that you should do on your house to make it last longer. Like, I've heard that stuff like enamel lasts longer than flat, and I've heard, like, people, there's all these different opinions over at like Home Depot, and these guys have no experience and they really don't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to kind of explain this to you and explain to you why a material will last longer than another. Okay, so if you have eaves like this that are rough sawn wood, if you look at that, it's not a smooth wood, it's a rough sawn wood. The best material for that is 100% acrylic flat paint. So there's some of them are self-priming, some of them aren't, but usually self-priming doesn't mean it's as good as primer. It just means that it can be put over raw wood if it's this type of wood, really rough wood. And the reason that that material is the best for the eaves is because it actually it has some it's not completely sealed. Now, why do you want your eaves not to be completely sealed? Because you need the wood to breathe a bit, so that if you do have a little bit of a roof leak, it's not going to peel off in sheets. So if you put enamel on your eaves, okay, a lot of guys say, hey, you put enamel on your eaves, it lasts longer, it's easier to wash off, all that stuff. But if you have a little bit of a roof leak, what it does is it seals up that wood. And when it seals it up, the water has no place to go. And what happens is the water will actually eventually just puddle up in there, and then eventually the paint will just start failing and you'll start to see it peel. So if you see someone with peeling eaves, usually they didn't get the right idea on that, and they maybe got some misinformation. On your doors, stuff like that, you always want something like semi-gloss, satin, eggshell, something with an enamel finish that's smooth, that you can wash off and wipe down stuff as you go. On your fascia boards, if they're this type of fascia board where it is a rough sawn fascia board, the best material again is 100% acrylic self-priming, or 100% acrylic flat, or solid acrylic stain, however you want to call it. Those are all the same basic material, but they're called different things, so depending on where you go to get it. So, but the reason again for that is because it is a rough surface, and if water gets into it, because it's not, it's porous, especially this wood is pretty painted smooth. But if there's any areas where the wood has any open areas, water gets in there, or especially if you have what typically I find a lot of times is the roof is done wrong, and like this roof, it doesn't even have a drip edge. Okay, honestly, it should have a drip edge all the way around. That's kind of being cheap. And when it doesn't have a drip edge, a lot of times the water will find its way back into the fascia board and cause your paint to peel. So those are the type of things that's the reasons why, and those are the type of things that you need to be looking at. Now, if you have smooth wood, you can actually put an enamel on that wood as well, and it's going to be just about the same longevity and time frame. But the thing is, the reason why people say that they want enamel is because they say, well, hey, it doesn't it washes off easier. I mean, honestly, the only thing it does different is it doesn't wash off any easier. But if you go up with with something, you want to scrub it, are you going to get up on your house and actually scrub your fascia boards? No, you're not. You're not going to do that. Don't tell me you're just being stupid. So think about this for a second. You're not going to go up there and scrub it. So that's the only difference between that enamel and flat, as far as longevity and stuff like that goes. As far as it being easier to wash off, that's the way that you're talking about washing it off. Like, if I want to get fingerprints off my door, there's a good chance I'm going to be able to do that. Now, stucco is another issue. Now, I've seen a lot of guys put enamel on their stucco. I've seen them put semi-gloss, satin, eggshell on their stucco. And the same problem is it needs to breathe, and it's very porous. So if you've got porosity and you've got stucco like this, the best thing is, again, a flat material, because it breathes. It will allow moisture to release, and instead of peeling off in sheets. So that's what the same reason, you know, that you put flat paint on your stucco and not put enamel. So some guys go, well, enamel lasts longer, it's easier to wash off. You know, it's easy to scrub off. If you take your hand and you scrub, if you get like an egg on here and you sat there and you scrubbed it, and it could probably be cleaned if it had enamel on it. It's not going to really, maybe not clean up as easily with flat, but it still will clean up actually pretty well. But you know, but some people think that you have to do that to make it easier to wash off, and that's absolutely not true. So this, you know, I've been doing this 35 years. I know my business. I'm very good at what I do, and these are the things that I've learned over 35 years of doing this type of work. So let's go over a couple more things about houses and what material to use. So you can use enamel on some of the other things, like if you have roughs on, if you have this type of wood here, it's fairly smooth. Sometimes enamel will give you a little bit better protection as far as moisture getting into the wood. So sometimes you'll want to put enamel on this type of wood, on this wood siding, versus putting flat on that. So it's up to you on that. Sometimes that can be beneficial to actually put enamel on your wood siding, depending on the type of siding it is. If it's rough sawn siding, then you know, if it's tongue and groove, you know, I'm talking about the a T111 siding where it has the grooves all the way along, then you should probably put flat on that, because you're not going to get that completely coated. You want it to be able to absorb moisture and release it, and that's what flat paint does. I don't know what I missed, but I would say preferably if you're going to go to a paint store, try not to go to a hardware store to get paint. If you can go to a paint store, it's always better. You're going to get a better quality material. They're in the business of doing paint, and hardware stores often have a middle grade of material, where if you go to a paint store, you're going to get paint store grade paint, and it's going to be a little bit better quality, and it might cost you a little bit more, but a lot of times it's better if you have that situation, to talk to them and say, hey, listen, you know, I was going to go to Home Depot, and you're at the paint store, and the guy says, hey, can you give me like a commercial grade price on this stuff? And he says, well, what were you going to pay at the paint store? You can probably negotiate with him and have him use somebody's shop account to help pay for it. A lot of the paint stores will do that. So if you just ask, you know, like Dun & Bradstreet may not, but maybe Vista, if you find somebody over there that might be able to help you out, do that. Or if you go to Sherwin-Williams, sometimes they'll want to, you know, the manager a lot of times has price override, and he can actually do some stuff for you to get you a better price if you're looking for that. All right, I'll talk to you in the next video.